One.
Hello, HB. Welcome. My name is Miss Law, one of the teachers here at Harold Brathwaite. We'd like to welcome you all to our Sikh Heritage Month panelist discussion presented by Harold Brathwaite Sikh Student Association. April has been proclaimed as a Sikh Heritage Month thanks to the Sikh Heritage Month Act of 2013. Sikh Heritage Month is an opportunity to remember, celebrate, and educate future generations about Sikh Canadians and the important role they have played and continue to play in communities across Ontario. We have Jaskama over here that's going to take over the rest of the presentation. So go ahead, please, Jaskama.
All right, so the land acknowledgement. I think there's a delay, but So land and water have been part of the Sikh identity from the inception of the faith. Guru Nanak Sahib writes, Asa ki Vaar, that water is the root of life. It gives birth to all living things, including our very panth. From Guru Nanak Sahib's emergence from the waters of Sultan Lodi to the creation of the Khalsa with the Gurbani, Patasa and Khanda infused Amrit of Guru Gobind Singh Sahib. Water is a transformative medium through which a connection with Waheguru is facilitated. We are a people spiritually born from water who are replenished by the Sarovars and who come from Punjab, a land of grain, plentiful resources, and of course, water. Punjab literally meaning the land of five rivers. To understand Punjab and its incredible history, you have to understand the water. It is connected to the rhythms of life, rites of religious passage, and the fight for Sikh sovereignty. Everything in Punjab can be traced back to it. I don't know if it's just me, but I hear my voice twice. So I would like to introduce Prabmeet Sarkaria, who is the member of provincial parliament for the riding of Brampton South since the 2018 Ontario provincial election.
Okay, welcome, Prabmeet. Thank you for joining us today. Jaskama will take it away with some questions for you this morning.
All right, so Prabmeet, first of all, it's an honor to be talking to you today. Great leader, especially of you being from our community. You know, it's great to have you here. And Prabmeet, so I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're the first turban-wearing Sikh cabinet minister in Ontario. So recognize and knowing this, how do you feel? And first of all, like, yeah, there's definitely a delay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. Thank you first of all, thank you very much for having me here. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties, so it's cutting in and out a bit. But yeah, I apologize for that. But can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? If it's okay. Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
I can hear you, but I hear my voice twice.
Okay. It might be on my end. I'm not sure, so I apologize for that. But you know, first of all, happy Sikh Heritage Month to everybody, and you know. Just briefly, you mentioned that I am the first Sikh cabinet minister in Ontario, but I think really when I look at the Sikh identity and the Sikh contributions to the country of Canada, we can trace it back over 100 years. This is over 100 years of many firsts for the Sikh community. And it's great to have a Sikh Heritage Month to be able to celebrate that and be very proud of our community and who we are and what some of our contributions have been to the province and to the country. We go back to the First World War. 7 Sikhs died fighting, protecting this country. So, we've been fighting for this country since, the early 1900s. But ever since then, we've been an integral part of not only the political side, the cultural fabric of this country, but even the economic side of it. You have some of the most significant leaders, whether it's in the tech side, banking side, that also belong to the Sikh faith. But the thing that makes me so proud to not only be here in front of all of you, but just to be here is just we're so fortunate to live in the greatest country in the world, where you've never had to choose between your faith and you've never had to choose between your country. We've seen some recent examples in Quebec where that's been challenged a bit, but it's great to see that unequivocally it's been denounced by anybody else, any other premier, and of course anybody else. So we've come a long way. When I talk about some of my journey, I grew up not in Brampton, but I was the only Sikh in my class. I was the only kid that wore a turban. I've always been very visible. I'm a tall guy. I'm like 6'4", always the biggest kid in my class. Always had the turban on, the star on. So no, that brought with it some challenges, but I was always thankful for everyone always playing a key part in my journey. And I really don't think, anywhere else in the world would my journey have been possible if it wasn't for the country that we've, built to this date, if it wasn't for, the 100+ years of the contribution of the Sikh community to this province and all that we've been able to do and accomplish. It doesn't matter what political party you're part of. I think representation is a very key and significant part of the community. But truly, when we look at where we've come today, it's just an incredible amount of sacrifice from so many previous generations. I always speak about my parents who, my dad was a taxi driver. My mom was working in factories. They built up enough money to be able to start a small business and gave me everything I could have ever asked for as I was growing up. Put me through some of the best educational institutions in the province, gave me the ability to become a lawyer. So, we're just so grateful to live in a country like Canada and a province like Ontario. And I'm just one very small part of that from, 100+ years of community being involved in that.
Yeah, like you said, being the sons of immigrants, right? Like with me personally as well, like as many people can relate to, it's great that our parents can provide us with so much here with being different, as you can say, in this community. But since you touched upon your education, could you tell us a little bit more about your high school experiences with being a Sardar and even going on to post-secondary? What did you do and how your experiences were there? Could you share, please?
Yeah, so I actually ended up, I went to high school at Mayfield. So, once again, that was a long time ago. I don't want to age myself here, but quite some time ago, one of very few people who wore the star in the school. But, I was, I always kind of was very thankful to whether it was, the teachers I dealt with, whether it was, our principals. We always had a great culture in that school. I was always very well respected amongst my peers. I never really, had many issues. But my experience is obviously not, I would say, that of many others that go through it. But, the one thing that I can always say is whether I've been traveling in different countries where there are no Sikhs or where we definitely look different, you always got to be proud of who you are. You should never be afraid to be who you are. And that's something that, I really try to pride myself on. And now that I'm, a new father, it's something that I really want to instill in my daughter as well, was just being proud of our, we have such an incredibly significant history, so much sacrifice. Our previous generations have done so much for this country that, we are, no one can ever tell us that we're not Canadians and that we are probably the most, actively involved as well. In terms of my education, I originally wanted to go into the banking sector. So I went to Wilfrid Laurier, did my BBA there, and majored in finance, and then ended up working at TD Securities. So, and that was more in some of the banking side of it. So, financial instruments, derivatives, cross-currency swaps, etc. That's kind of where I wanted to be, have a strong focus on finance. But then I felt that I really wanted to do more, and so then I started studying for law school. It's something that I just always wanted in the back of my mind. I remember growing up telling my parents I always wanted to be a lawyer. I always wanted to be in law, and so I ended up while I was working, writing my LSAT. And then ending up at Windsor Law School, and that was like an incredibly, I would say, I was incredibly fortunate to be able to do that, and it was something that I really enjoyed, and I ended up practicing law at one of Canada's largest law firms at Miller Thompson, where I focused, mostly on corporate commercial transactions, so a lot of private equity work, but it was really, once again, it always comes down to just, the opportunity, right? We've got to just ensure that everybody continues to have that opportunity to be able to succeed, and that there's no replacement for hard work. I can remember whether it was in high school, whether it was in elementary school, university. I was never the smartest kid in my class, but you probably couldn't find anybody that could work harder than me. It didn't matter if I had to study, for someone that had to study maybe 2 days for an exam, I'd probably have to put 5 days worth of studying into that exam. And that's really what I've just built tried to build myself around. I'm never the smartest guy in the room, but you can always replace that with hard work, a good work ethic. And I really think, that's bound in our, and really developed through our Sikh as well. We see what, the previous generations have gone through. We see what's going on in our community today. And you can really draw on a lot of inspiration from that, and really just knowing your history, knowing where we're coming from, what our traditions, what our, Sikh faith has gone through, I think has given me the ability to get to where I am today.
Yeah, the term Chardi Kala is really stood out and famous in our culture, in our Sikhi. So when you say you're going through battles and hardships through your education or whatever, we have that term Chardi Kala, which just keeps us going forward, right? We're pushing through whatever we're going through, and we're keeping our head high. And especially, how I said, we're both Sardars, right? We look different, we're distinct. That's what our Gurujis gave us, right? That distinct quality to stand out in our communities, right? And talking about the stars and Sardars, in our community, in our neighborhoods, the term Gyani is widely used to refer to someone that ties with the star or pug. And many people feel that this term is not very respectful, considering that Gyani is the Sikh equivalent of priest. So the problem lies here is that our own community and our own people are calling each other this term. And obviously other communities will also engage with this term. So what do you think about this, and what do you think that needs to be done to condemn this issue?
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that, and that used to be a very common word in high school. As soon as I remember when I moved out of high school, I think I don't think I ever heard that word again. But it's more about education, right? Like when you look at Sikh history and Sikh philosophy, Gyani is actually a very high pedestal for someone to be bestowed, right? It's not a word that should be used, right? And it's just more so out of education on that specific, right? Like you look at some of the most respected, you look at, Darbar Sahib is one of the most, it is the most important Sikh Gurdwara for anybody in our faith, right? And the highest seat at that the head Granthi, right? The Gyani, and no one can, that was Baba Burdaji when we look back into our history, who was the head Granthi, who we also call Gyani ji. So, it's really unfortunate that, it's just this, a lot of, not a lot of education on that term. And then when you use it to a certain extent in a derogatory manner, it does a disservice to not only Sikhi, but also to the people in the highest, I would say, those who actually have earned that categorization, or that, I would say, title. And it's not something that should be used loosely, right? And I 100% agree with you on that. And it should be condemned in all of its forms. And, you see it pop up a lot on social media, a lot of comedian type people. It's usually our own comedians that will try to push that narrative. and that's where we've got to be more vocal and educate on that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We should come together as a community, try to solve this issue, because obviously there's terms that other communities use that are not really good, right? So I mean, coming together on a situation like this is the best way, and education again is the best way to change our narrative or change our perspective and to help people understand what like the true meaning behind everything is, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and Prabmeet, as we transition, before the panel meeting, I read up on you actually, and I came across the fact that you were Ontario Vice President of the World Sikh Organization. So, could you tell us more about your position here and share some experiences that you may have had?
Yeah, so one of the things that was very close to me was just advocacy, because I had been into law, from not only from the Sikh perspective, but religious freedom is something that I'm a very strong believer in. You've seen some erosion of religious freedom in places in other provinces, like Quebec. You can see the attack on religious freedoms there. I think we have to be, I've always been committed to being a steadfast supporter of religious freedoms. And I look back at some of the things that I was able to work on, whether it's been exemptions for Sikhs, based on their dastar, whether it's riding a motorcycle, which is accepted all across pretty much internationally except for Ontario. When you look at it from the perspective of being able to wear your kirpan in school, one of the cases when I was growing up, I remember very specifically, was a student by the name of Gurbaj Multani, who wasn't able to, in Quebec, once again in Montreal, was denied the right to practice his faith. That case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was advocated by the WSO, not just at the Supreme Court level, but in many significant ways. It was a way to kind of solidify through the highest court of this that you have the right to, as a Sikh, to wear your articles of faith. But that wasn't, that's not the only battle that, in that role that we were able to accomplish. You look at, students of Scottish descent who were in some places in this province restricted from wearing their kilt. So, you look at the Jewish community who faces some of the, disproportionately also faces, a lot of hate crimes on themselves. I was a strong supporter of making sure that we fight against anti-Semitism, in our, not only in some circumstances, some institutions, but also across, many. They've just become an easy target, and I think we needed to stand up. And whether that was previous in my role as VP or whether it's now, I think we need to be, fundamentally stand against those type of I guess rhetoric or measures, but we need to be just as strong in defending it, not only as Sikhs, but as Sikhs defending the right for whether it's a Jewish person, whether it's a Muslim person, whether it's a Hindu person as well. So that's really what drove me to that, and some of the work that I was able to do there, and it continues in my role today, where I have an actual ability to affect change.
Yeah, Prabmeet. And now that over the past year, I've seen when you were signing an election, I used to see your posters and boards all over the place, right? And now over the past year, during the Doug Ford briefings, I see you, and I look at the TV and I'm like, that's a Sardar right there. Man mahsoos hunda, right? Like apna Singh Sardar, right, is standing there with the government. So it's a big thing, right? I feel appreciative that my people are getting higher in the status, right? In Canada, where you would expect more of white people to be controlling or whatnot, right? So when I see your story, right, immigrant child that's had a business background educationally, then went to law school, got his degree. So I feel I look at you and I see accomplishment, I see a role model, a leader, right? So what advice would you give to young kids like me, or younger kids coming and following your footsteps, or some advice that you would give? Do you have any?
Yeah, of course, it's, I was, like many of you guys 10 years ago, I'm actually the youngest cabinet minister. I'm only years old. So like never ever let anybody tell you, something is impossible. That's my, that's always my motive to anybody. And there's nothing that hard work can't stop. You can't,
Yeah.
you can accomplish anything with hard work. I'm a big believer in setting goals, committing to those goals. One of the things I like to do is, every week, I take an hour to 2 hours, and I've been doing this for a while just to self-reflect, see where I am this week compared to other weeks. I think you can, and then, use that. You always have a plan in place. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. I never expected, if you asked me 5 years ago, to be an elected politician. I was on a events led me into being an elected politician, and then subsequently into cabinet. But what I can always, say to you is always, one of the biggest things I've found in my life is there's no replacement for a network. Get outside of your bubbles. Try to establish as many connections as you can with people. So, for example, I wanted to be a lawyer. When I first wanted to be in banking, when I was in school, I would go on LinkedIn at that time, and I'd send them emails and say, hey, I'm a student. I want to talk to you. I just want to learn about your experience. I would do that kind of stuff. When I was in law, I would do the exact same thing. I'd find lawyers at some of the largest Bay Street firms in Ontario, and I would reach out to them, and I would say, hey, like, I'm a student. I want to get you where you are. So the point being that, find mentors, find people like, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a teacher, if you want to be a lawyer, find somebody or find multiple people. And then really bounce ideas off them, see how they got there. No one's path is ever going to be the exact same as anybody else's. But I think one of the things that you can do is really build up a lot by just getting out there, meeting different people, connecting with different people, and using that to get out. And if there's anybody here, listening or on the call that ever wants any help with, whether it's law school, whether it's business side of it, whether it's opening doors through introductions, I'm happy to do that. I probably every week go through 3 or 4 resumes for students that reach out to me and ask for help. Every year when law school applications are opening up, I probably spend a good, almost full week of, or not full week, but at least like 15, 20 students working on their personal statements, working on, just giving them advice on applications. So never be afraid to reach out. The one thing I always think sometimes people are afraid of is getting a no. But who really cares if somebody says no to you? For every 5 no's, if you get 1 yes, that can turn into, life-changing opportunities. So, I'll kind of leave it at that. But, if there's anybody I can help with from mentoring or any advice, don't ever hesitate to reach out. I'd be more than happy to do so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's great advice, sir. And then now that we look at the time, 1:15, it's time to conclude. But on a lighter note, I hear that you're a big sports guy. So, what's your favorite teams and players? Let's talk about that.
So, I'm both. So I would say hockey and basketball. So I grew up in the Sundin era when I was a Leafs fan. For Raptors, of course, diehard Raps fan. But my favorite player was always Kobe Bryant. Unfortunately, and then I've now become an avid golfer. So I'm obsessed with golf.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've just fallen in love with. So that's my new kind of activity. As you get older, you can't play as many sports. So you'll see when you guys get a bit older, you're gonna pick up golf as well. So that's where
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I play golf too sometimes. I take my dad out. We go hit the course.
Awesome, man.
It's fun. I mean, you look at it. I mean, yeah, you look at golf. You're like, oh, it might be boring in this, but no, you get that experience, and it's just like, wow, right? I mean, 100%. That's one of the things that are open with this lockdown and stuff, right?
Not anymore, but
thank you so much.
100% when it opens up again, we definitely will, and I'll take you out for a round one day too. So
yeah, hopefully, yeah. All right, thank you, Prabmeet, Sarkaria, so much. thank you so much for taking your time on talking to the students here at HB. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully maybe we can connect after this as well. Maybe just stay back a little bit. I'll talk to you for a little bit, and then everyone else, I think it's time to conclude. Get to your classes. I guess 3 minutes late already. So Miss Law, would you like to take over?
Yes. Thank you, Prabmeet. Thank you, Jessica Mo, for joining us, Prabmeet, today. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to our students and tell us a little bit about your background and really empowering all of us today. Jessica, a wonderful job with the questions. That was great. We appreciate your time, Prabmeet. We look forward to working with you again in the future. On behalf of all the teachers, staff, students, and the Sikh Student Association, we thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Absolutely appreciate it.
Take care. Thank you.
Yeah.